Have you guys ever wanted to make an explosion for your games, Legend of Zelda style? Or maybe little foot dust poofs for your characters in your video games? Or maybe even a death poof? Well, then you've come to the right place. We're going to be using Blender for this tutorial. I'm going to be using version 4.1, but you can use any later version if you wish. It should still work pretty much the exact same. All right, so this is the default scene you're going to be met with right here. We are actually going to use the default cube. I know, it's sacrilegious, but bear with me. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So let's go ahead and take our cube here, go down to the modifiers panel that looks like a little blue wrench. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pump the levels on this guy up to 4. We're going to add another modifier, go down to the deform tab and go to displace. Under displace here on the side, under the blue wrench still, it created a new displacement modifier underneath your subdivision surface. Go ahead and hit new on that, okay? And that's going to open up this panel down here under texture. But before we hop over to texture, we're going to generate one more subdivision surface modifier, and we can just leave that one on 1 for now. Now we can hop down to textures because we created a new one. Scroll up a little bit, and where it says image or movie, here, I'll pull this out a little bit for you guys. Where it says image or movie right here, we're actually going to hit the little drop down and change it to something like clouds. I'm going to go ahead and use clouds just because I like the way that looks. So you can already see the effect happening here. I'm going to right click shade smooth. So now you have this interesting looking shape. The nice thing about this explosion is that it is going to be completely procedural. We're not going to be using any smoke or fire renders, liquid renders, anything like that, because in my opinion, they try too hard to be realistic and they end up looking really bad unless you spend a lot of time on them to make them look very realistic. This is going to be more stylized for tons of video games, anime attacks, whatever you want to use it for. And we are going to be using the shader editor to manipulate most of this with animation and keyframes. So once you have this shape right here, we're going to leave it on clouds, we're going to leave it on soft. The size, you know, I do like to crank it up a little bit to get kind of more of a cartoony effect or look. Maybe we'll leave it at about 0.69, something like that. Looks good to me. If you go back to the blue wrench, where it says coordinates local, you're going to click that drop down and change it to global. That way, if you move this object, it will automatically change the coordinates since they are now attached to the world itself. Even if you scale it, it's going to do the same thing. If you don't and you leave it on local, it's just going to be a static object. It's not going to dynamically change like that. In order to get it to dynamically change like that, we're going to change it from local to global. And now you can see it did work. Okay. So that is kind of the gist of it here. We're almost done, honestly. So this is the shape, and the real magic is going to happen with, of course, the VFX shader editor here. We're going to hop into shader editing. Little pro tip. If you have these windows open and you don't like these, find an empty space on the header, like right here. This is a blank space. Right click, close area. Just like that. I'm going to go ahead and hop into this mode just so I can see a little bit more of what I'm doing here. This is a new material that kind of came on this guy. If you don't have one, you can hit the new button and you will make a new material for it. So down here, first thing I'm going to do is delete this principal BSDF. I'm going to shift A, and I do have screencast keys on down in the bottom right hand corner. I'm going to shift A. I'm going to add a mix shader. And I'll plug that mix shader into the surface of my material output. If you guys watched any of my previous videos, you will already know kind of what we're going to be doing here. One of my previous videos, the only recipe you'll need for VFX, is pretty much what we're about to do. So as I told you guys in that video, which I'll put a link to either down in the description or at the end of this video, you will see that that setup really does work for pretty much everything. So we're going to put it into a little bit of practical use here. Okay, off that mix shader, we're going to shift A, add in an emission shader, and we're going to shift D, that emission shader, which is duplicate. We're going to plug the bottom into the bottom, top into the top, just kind of move it down a little bit. And now we need a mask here. So remember before I used a mask, which was like a noise texture, I believe. to show you guys how this works. Well, in this case, I'm going to be using the layer weight node. Go ahead and plug facing into the factor on this mix shader. Now we want to be able to control this, and I believe last time I showed you guys to put a color ramp in between here. That will work, but not for the effect that we want to achieve here at the very end, because we do want to be able to animate a lot of these values here. So I'm going to Shift A, add in a math node right in between the layer weight and the factor on the mix shader. Under add, drop that down, and we're going to select greater than right there. Okay, that's going to give us some more fine-tuned control over this. We can go ahead and leave the blend at 0.5 for the layer weight on the facing. That is just fine. We do, however, want to add a little bit of color into this guy now. So we're going to want two different colors. We're going to want smoke and we're going to want fire. So we're going to use this one for the fire and this one for the smoke. So I'm going to Shift A, add in a color ramp, and I'm going to Shift D and duplicate that color ramp. Take my layer weight node, move it back a little bit just so I have some room. I'm going to plug the color from the top color ramp into the top emission and the bottom color ramp right into the color for the bottom emission. Now you can rename nodes, and I'm going to do so here. Left click the node, right click the node, rename, and you're going to name it, let's say fire for this one. And you can see it did change the name up there. Same thing, left click, right click, rename, smoke. Whoops. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to type one-handed as I record into a microphone. Bear with me. All right, so you can see if we mess with the contrast of this fire one, you can kind of already see the effect starting to happen there. You got the cartoony outline going on up there, right? And so when we move it, you can see the effect we're starting to get. That's exactly what we want. So up here, we're just going to give it some fire colors. So first thing I'm going to do is change this from linear to constant, so we get that nice cartoony game VFX look we're after here. Pull this white shader out, or this white slider out just a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and change this black one to probably white, a little yellow, slightly like a beige, woohoo. All right, and then we can control left click, and we'll add another slider into the color ramp. We could just hit plus, but it randomly puts it in, and you can control it a lot better if you just control left click where you want it to go. Okay, so control left click, add in a slider. For this slider, we're going to go ahead and change the color to a nice yellow color. And so now we're going from white-ish, like a beige white, to a yellow, to, of course, a red. I'm going to make it like a orangey red. So you can mess with this factor over here, and you can see the effect we're getting with the greater than. That's why I use this instead of a color ramp, because it's going to give us more control in the end over exactly what we want, so we can actually animate it. This is a good time to go ahead and hop on over to the materials tab over here, and under blend mode, click this, drop down, and go to alpha clip. That's just going to allow us to make it transparent. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on this mix shader, Shift D, duplicate it, and drop it right between this one and the material output. We're going to take this greater than, Shift D, move it over, and we're going to take the facing from here and go ahead and plug it into the top value of this greater than, and push this down into the factor of this mix shader, Shift A, and the transparent BSDF will go into the bottom of this mix shader. So what that's going to allow us to do now is have really good control over the transparency of this object, as you can see, just like that. A little goes a long way, so don't mess with it too much. So down here under our smoke, we're going to go ahead and select a few colors that look nice and smoky. So go ahead and flip that over to there. Just like that. Pull that black slider in. I'm going to do control left click. Make this a darker tone, but not quite black. And we'll make this also slightly darker. That looks good to me. Feel free to mess with it as much as you want until you get the color that you are after. So If you mess with this emission strength, you'll see that is your fire. I'm gonna go ahead and go up to my render properties and enable bloom. Again, I'm in Blender version 4.1. If you're in a later version, bloom is gone. So in order to get the bloom effect in the later versions, which the bloom is this nice glow around it, if your bloom option is gone, then you're gonna need to use the compositor. In order to do that, here, I'll go ahead and just show you guys real fast. Turn off bloom, so you can see it is off. Under this drop down up here, under viewport shading, we're gonna go to compositor always. And then under this drop down here, under where we were at our shading editor, I'm gonna go ahead and change that to the compositor. Take use nodes, Shift A, add in a glare node, and drop it right in between here. That's a little intense. We can go ahead and turn it to fog, glow, and the size down, and you can mess with the mix a little bit. And there you go. So you kind of get the same effect. There's all sorts of things here you can mess with to change it. You can change it to streaks or simple star, which can look pretty cool for certain effects. For me, I'm just going to keep it real simple. And instead of using the compositor, which will show up in your renders, I'm going to disable it and just keep bloom on for now. But just know that this will work. I'm going to simply change this back to the shader editor and we're good to go. We have this threshold here, which changes it from fire to smoke, right? So let's go ahead and change it to smoke and mess with our smoke color till we get something we kind of like. Somewhere around here. Go ahead and change this color ramp from linear to constant as well. And then as you mess with this, you'll see it turns from fire to smoke. So fire to smoke and from smoke to nothing, right? So that is how we're going to animate it. So let's go ahead and get that to a point where we like the way it looks. If you want to add a little bit more spice to this, so there's just more color variation coming in this, because right now it's pretty much just red and black outlines. We can go ahead and take the facing from our layer weight node, plug it into the factor of this color ramp. There you go. So now you have a little bit more variation. It's just going to take the facing, which is basically all the lines or curves. If we go into this mode, you see all these bumps and curves, all the normals and faces that are facing where you are currently, where the camera is. It's going to go ahead and color those in the order of this color ramp. It will influence greatly how your fire looks. Okay, so you can see how we have like a red, yellow to a white. Perfect. That's fairly realistic. I mean, obviously we're not going for realism here, but it is fairly realistic. Go ahead and get into the camera view so we know what we're looking at. I'm going to Shift A, add in a plane, just so I have a point of reference for the floor. You do not need to do this, but I'm going to do this. Good enough. So for this explosion, let's go ahead and animate this now. If we hop on over to the animation tab up here, you don't need to go to any of these tabs. You can always just change the windows. And in my opinion, it is a good practice to get into to change these windows because you're going to be doing it a lot as you go through your Blender career. But for now, and for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to hop to the animation tab. Let's change it to render view. Let's say at about frame 20. We're going to select our explosion here. Hit I to inset the location, rotation, and scale. Go back to frame 1 or 0, whatever you're going to start on here. Hit S for scale, 0, enter, and I. So there you go. So now it will animate when you hit spacebar, just like that. Boom. I'm also going to grab and move it down so it comes up. So all I did was just grab this little dot here, which is technically our whole explosion, shrunk down to nothing, and moved it down so it goes from down to up as it expands, right? Like an explosion, like boom. Like my sound effects, I'm a professional sound effect maker. So now that we have that done, let's just tweak a couple keyframes on this. Go to frame 60, expand it a little bit more, grab it and move it up to about there. So now it'll explode and kind of slowly move up like that. Okay, you see what I'm doing? So it explodes up quick and slowly moves up. So we went 0, 15, and 60. Hop back into the shading editor. Pull this down. If you put your cursor at the right above your shader editor in the viewport till this little crosshair appears, left click and pull up, you can pull out another window. We're gonna go over to the drop down over here and change it to the timeline so we can see our keyframes. Now we're going to animate some of these nodes down here. So first things first, we are going to want to transition it from fire to smoke. Let's say about here, 28, frame 28, give or take. I'm going to go to this greater than, the first greater than here, not this one, but this one. And click the node itself and hover over the value and hit I, and it will turn yellow and add a keyframe here. Make sure to have the node selected, hover over and hit I, and it will animate that value. I'm gonna drag to 60 and turn this to 0 and hit I for that. To keyframe it now, see it turns like that. Okay, perfect, exactly what we want. Alrighty, so under frame 28 again, we're gonna go to this other greater than that controls the amount you can see. Click on the node, hit I, insert that keyframe, drag it to 60, threshold 0, I. So boom, and there you go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and move this up just a smidge, insert another keyframe so it does continue to move as the smoke's disappearing. It just looks a little more dynamic. Now you see you have this shadow here, even when it's gone. We don't really want that, so click on this object here, go back down to the material setup, under shadow mode, hit none. Now let's make the other pieces of this. They're gonna go pretty quick. So in object mode, click into space so you have nothing selected, Shift A, mesh, and a UV sphere. GZ, move it up. In edit mode with tab, I'm going to select the bottom ring, hold Alt, left click, and then you can hold Control and hit plus on your numpad until you have all the bottom half faces selected. We're going to go ahead and delete those faces so you have a half sphere here. Shift D it, grab it, and move it up. So now you have two. All right, so for this first one, we're going to go over to the particles, add a new particle system. We're going to go ahead and make the number something fairly small, like 300. Let's go ahead and GZ, move it down, set it right on top of the platform there. Right where the explosion hits, right about, goes like 9 or 10, is where we're going to go ahead and start the animation. So under frame start, on the particle tab, we're going to hit 10. And it's going to go to frame 11. So one frame to release all 300 balls. Okay, so you can see, boom, all 300 particles, boom, released at once, okay? From frame 10 to 11. We're gonna wanna give them a little color here, so an easy way to do that is just Shift A, mesh, UV sphere, move it off to the side. Under the material properties, give it a new color, emission, change it to like an orange or a red, turn it up, back to your particle emitter here. If you scroll down, you can go to render, and where it says halo, hit the drop down, click object. Scroll down a little more where it says instance object, hit the eyedropper, and eyedrop that little glowing sphere we just made. So now you have a bunch of little glowing spheres. Boom. So the lifetime, I'm gonna go ahead and turn 29. Lifetime randomness, crank that sucker up. Under physics, go ahead and drop that down. We are going to turn the Brownian up to say 5 or 6. Turn the drag up to 0.1 and the dampening up to, I don't know, 0.3. And if we go down to velocity and under normal, this is going to be the amount that is forcing it out initially. So the speed it comes out at. Let's turn that up to something ridiculous like 42. See what it looks like. Nice, looking good. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the mass way up under physics. So they're sort of heavy, something like 43, 45, something like that. And let's see how it looks now. So they fall a little quicker, perfect. Okay, so under scale, so we're gonna go ahead and play it real quick. Under scale, we're gonna crank scale randomness all the way up. And you can make them whatever size you want. I think that looks pretty good. 0.03. Under object velocity, under velocity again, we're going to scale that randomness up to like 11. And let's see what it looks like. Love it. So there's the particle effect done. Now, if we take this other sphere, we duplicate it up top, G, Z, move it down. We are going to go to frame 19, S, Z to scale it on the Z axis, S, Shift, Z to scale it outwards, something like that. And you can make it a little bit bigger if you wish. Go to 0, S0, enter, and insert that. So we pretty much put a shell around it. So it's a little explosion turtle. Sweet. No, but really, let's shade that smooth. Add a new shader onto it. We'll call this a wave. It's a shock wave. So for the shock wave, I know it's going to shock you. Yeah, sorry, bad jokes. Let's go ahead and delete this principal BSDF. Shift A, mix shader, shader to surface, Shift A, emission. Go ahead and plug the emission into the top portion, Shift A, transparent to the bottom of that mix shader. Pretty much the same setup we had last time, but let's gonna Shift D. We're gonna Shift D this, put it right in between. I'm gonna Shift D it again and put it down here, shader into shader. So now we're stacking them. No mask on this one, but we are gonna mask this one. Let's get the color we want on this first, so I don't have to pick it again. Good enough. And another transparent. Remember to go to the material properties and blend mode, alpha clip, shadow, none. Beautiful. Let's grab a gradient texture and use that as the mask for this mix shader. Shift A, color ramp, shove that in between there. And let's change the gradient texture to easing. And we're gonna grab a layer weight node. I'm sure you guys are seeing a pattern emerging here. I use a lot of the same things. We're gonna swap these handles here. Mouse will cooperate. Okay. Pretty much like that. Move that over, move that out until you have a look that you're looking for there, look that you like. We're gonna go ahead and tab into edit mode. Hit 2 for edge select, hold Alt, click these edges, hit F for face. Let's go ahead and make sure that it's not so crazy. So we're gonna adjust the blend amount on the layer weight node, something like that. So you can kind of see both sides there. Depends on where your camera's at, really. So I'm just positioning my camera. You guys don't need to do this if you don't want to, but I'm going to. Now we're gonna go ahead and Shift A, grab a noise texture. I'm gonna plug that noise texture into the factor right here. Shift A, color ramp, boom, right between there. And now you can go ahead and mess with this to your heart's content. So go to the blue wrench, add modifier, deform, and displace. New. Go down your textures like we did before. Image and movie, let's move it to clouds. Go back to your blue wrench and change the strength of it. Change it from local to global. Feel free to change the strength of it however much you want. You can always mess with this color ramp here to get the desired outcome you're looking for. However you guys want to mess with this thing. Really, it's just however creative you're feeling today. That's the only limit you have. And really, it's not a limit. I mean, honestly, it's kind of a good thing. You know, AI is taking over a lot of the world, and I think human creativity needs to prevail here. So at the end of this animation, around 50, we'll go ahead, as that turns into smoke, we're gonna go ahead and expand this just a smidge more, just so it still keeps moving. So we're gonna go ahead and go to, let's see, 31, and insert a keyframe on this layer weight node here for our dome. Then we're gonna go back to 61 and turn the layer weight to 0, insert a keyframe there. So that disappears as well. And last thing, under the particle emitter here, if we go down to render and where it says show emitter, uncheck that. You can add in all sorts of other little things to make this more interesting, more realistic. You can control how spiky this is, you know, how this looks like, or what this looks like with the strength. Right, so if you want it to be less or more, or you know, however you want it to look, you can also go down to the textures down here and mess with the size of it. I personally like it to be not as spiky. The depth will change like how big and wavy it is or how spiky it is. I think 2 on the depth, 1.75 on the size look pretty good for a nice little cartoon blast. Yeah, I think that looks really good. So there you go. There's our final product here. I think it looks not bad. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something from it. If you did, consider liking and subscribing so you get my content. I release a video every week and a short every day-ish. I will see you guys in the next one.